Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I am Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about 7 questions which you should prepare for whenever you are going for a visa interview. And this may be a visa interview for a student visa, a scholar visa, a postdoc visa, a work visa, a spouse visa, or a tourist visa. So let's look at these questions. So the number one question is, why are you traveling? And essentially this is the question which is related to the type of visa you are applying for. If you are traveling to study in a country, you are applying for the student visa. If you are traveling to visit some tourist sites, then you are applying for a tourist visa. If you are applying to visit relatives, you are applying for a visitor visa, and so on. So essentially this is going to directly tie in with the application form you have filled up for the visa processing. And so this is just a preliminary warm-up question you may be asked by the officer. Number 2 question is, when are you traveling? And this is a piece of information which is essentially giving the officer the exact timeline which is there for you to travel. So this should be as late as possible. So the best thing is to always go for a visa much before your travel actually takes place, because many a time the visa goes into some kind of administrative processing, or there are delays in getting background checks and so on in the visa. So essentially this puts in mind of the officer the precise date in which you are traveling. Now the next question is, how long do you plan to stay? And this is the question which gives the officer an idea about what is your stint in that country. So essentially if you are going for a tourist visa, it may be 1 week or 2 weeks. If you are going for a visitor visa to go to some relatives, it can be 3 months to 6 months. If it's a student visa, it could be 4 years for a bachelor's degree, 2 years for a master's degree, 4 to 5 years for a PhD degree, and so on. If you are going for a postdoc visa, it could be 2 to 3 years, and if you are going for a worker visa, it could be 3 or 6 years long, as the case may be. So essentially remember one thing, that the officers have to make a decision about your visa in a very short amount of time. This time may be 3 to 5 minutes per person. And essentially what they do is they do not go through the documentation which you may have brought. They essentially make a judgment based on the answer of various questions which they ask you. So keep that in mind. Now the next question is, where are you going to stay? Now this question is very important, because this now starts solidifying that you have done some research work about your visit to that country. So essentially if you are going as a tourist, you need to know the hotel you are going to, and also the address, phone number, and so on of that hotel. Also, if you are going to visit some relatives, you can say that. And if you are going to visit a conference, again you may have some place to stay and you need to say that. Now if you are a student, you may be first landing up in a hotel and then going to a dorm. So you should have made some reservations for room in the dorm or in the apartments and so on. If not, you can mention that you are going to spend some time staying in some temporary place, or maybe with a friend, and then you are going to look for a room in the dorm, or you are going to look for a apartment somewhere nearby to the university. So these things are important, because the officer is going to make a judgment that you are a serious person, you are going to that country with a well planned out process. Because remember, when you are going to a foreign country, it's very important to do all the thinking beforehand. You do not want to land up in a foreign country and make decisions there, and if the officer sees that you have not done your homework diligently, he or she may reject your visa. So that's not something which you want to happen. Now the next question is, who are you staying with? So this question becomes important if you are staying with relatives. So essentially if you are applying for a visa to visit your parents in the US, or visit your children in the US or in some country, or you are planning to go as a fiance or as a spouse, then again you need to specifically mention the place they stay in and the fact that you are going to stay with them. So this is very important. Sometimes people go to conferences and they stay with some relatives or friends, so they may not stay in a hotel in that case. So you need to clearly mention that fact also, and say which place you are going to. So if you are going to stay in Berlin, or you're going to stay in New York, or you're going to stay in New Delhi, you need to mention these facts also whenever you are being asked these questions. Now the next question is, who are you planning to see? Now this question is important in the case where you are going for some kind of a visitor visa. So essentially, whenever you go for a visitor visa, you may stay with somebody, or you may even stay in a hotel, and you may be going there to visit your son. For example, if your son or daughter is studying in the US or in Germany, you may go from some foreign country, stay in a hotel, and essentially see your son or daughter there, maybe spend some time with them and so on, and then come back to your country. So essentially they want to make sure of this fact. And then the next question is, what are you planning to do? So this of course then goes into the whole complex array of questions which you may be asked about whatever you are planning to do. Now for example, if you are going on a tourist visa, you need to have a clear plan about the various places you are going to visit, about the various hotels you are going to stay in, about the various cities you are going to see, the various sightseeing things you need to do, and so on. You need to also know which are the bus routes or the train routes you need to take, what are the plane tickets you have booked, and so on. If you are going as a student, you need to clearly say what are the degrees you want to do, who is your supervisor, what is the department you are going to study in, what is your main subject, what are some of the courses you are going to study, and so on. So many a time the officers ask some probing questions here, and they can very quickly figure out if a person is a non-serious candidate or a fraudulent candidate. So keep that in mind. You may be an honest person, but what may happen is that the fact that you do not know any of these things may come across as somewhat suspicious to the officer concerned. So be careful about that. Similarly, whenever you are going for a postdoc, they are going to ask you some questions on what's your research area, what are the papers you have published till now, which journal you have published them in, and who is your supervisor, and who is funding your stay there. So again, these things are very simple questions to figure out whether you are a legitimate person or not. So essentially anybody who is a postdoctoral scholar will suddenly find that his eyes light up and he gives very nice answers to this question. If somebody is a fake scholar, he's not going to be able to answer to many of these questions, and so on. Now if you are going there on a job, be sure that you have a clear idea about the job you are going for. For example, if you are going as a software engineer, what's the programming language you are going to use? Is it C? Is it Rust? Is it Golang? You need to be clear about that. They may ask some follow-up questions on that language. Why are you using Golang language? Why are you not using C? So essentially by asking a few probing questions, they can figure out whether you have legitimate and deep knowledge of the subject or you do not, because sometimes there is a misrepresentation of people going on. So again, whatever your area, you make sure that you know all the things. You know the name of your supervisor, you know the company where you are going, you know the city, you know the town, you know where the office is located, how far the hotel is from the location, and all these things. So make sure you do all this research before you go to the embassy, so that whenever you go there, it seems that you have already planned all the things, and when the officer sees something like that, he or she knows that you are a very serious person and you are a very competent person. So whatever purpose you are going for, you will be able to do that problem you have proposed, and you are not going to become a problem case down the road, or you become some kind of problem for the local state governments or the country, and then they have to send you back to your home country, and so on. So these are things the people in the consulate and embassy do not want to happen. So that was my take about the 7 important questions to get the travel visa. Remember, like I said before, the people there have a few minutes to make a 1-0 decision about each case, whether they want to accept your case or they want to reject your case. They are not allowed to actually scrutinize all your papers, spend enormous amount of time on each candidate. So these decisions need to be made fast, and very often a few questions are asked. The reply to them, if it comes across very properly, very fluently, then they simply make the decision to give you the visa. If you stumble, if you seem not to know the answer of any of these questions, you are completely lost, then what they are going to do is they are likely going to reject the visa, or they are going to put it in some kind of administrative processing such as the 221G or something like that. So that was my take on the important questions you need to prepare for. So these are again from my personal experiences, from experiences of my friends and people I know. Again, I am not an immigration lawyer, so whatever I am saying is from my personal viewpoint. And if you need professional advice, do consult an immigration attorney. So I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.